Get sensual here with Hurry Up Tomorrow. Jacob, take it away.
Hurry up tomorrow, more like hurry up and end, am I right?
I would give that to you if I didn't see 9 of those jokes the second I opened Letterboxd after that movie, so...
Welcome to, we're not counting episodes, so just the newest episode of Screensavers. We saw a double feature this weekend. Hurry Up Tomorrow, unfortunately, and Final Destination Bloodline. We will talk about both, and spoiler, we liked one a lot more than we did the other, if you can't tell.
Let's put our
I
letterbox for Hurry Up Tomorrow.
Yes, here we go. I'm going to do the wave again. Here we go.
Yeah, Lindsay can start this seeing as she was the most favorite of it.
Yes.
As you can see, I gave it a 2 out of 5. The entertainment value of how like cringy and bad it was good enough for me to give it a couple stars.
I was upset that I spent money on it. If I saw this on streaming, I think I would have gave it 2 stars.
I walked into this movie not knowing what the plot was, and I walked out of the movie not knowing what the plot was. I guess I should also preface this by saying I do like The Weeknd and his music, but Steven and I watched The Idol when that came out, so we already had an idea of what his acting was going to be like. Not good, obviously, even though I feel like I enjoyed The Idol because of like the side characters. This, like the other characters, were not anything exciting. Like, they didn't really have a lot to work with, so it just kind of fell a little flat.
I mean, I think Lee is the character of the movie. Best friend, best manager I've seen.
He got to be Irish still, so...
Yep, he got to keep his accent.
I'm glad we saw this movie, though, because now when somebody asks me, what is the worst movie you ever seen, I have a definitive no contest answer.
See, I can't call this the worst movie I've ever seen because I watched Beau is Afraid, which is by far one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, at no point in that theater did I ever... Not even for a second did I enjoy any of my time watching this movie. I knew it was... I didn't see the runtime. I knew you guys said it was sub 2 hours. I was just waiting for it to end.
I'm glad I stayed and watched the whole thing because what can't we talk about with this?
I have one positive thought.
Yeah.
All right, what's the positive thought? Yeah.
The positive thought was that the music was good. I know it's from a new album.
Yeah.
So all of this music was new for me. I really liked the song that he performed at the concert. That was the only positive thing I have written down, was that the music was good.
My positive take from this was Jenna Ortega's Patrick Bateman impression.
So just to like talk about that for a second, even though we're jumping ahead a little bit, right? You're right that it probably was inspiration for that. I assumed the dialogue would have been so much better. She's clearly supposed to be a super fan. I thought that they were going to go deep into this lyrical analysis, and she didn't. It was sort of like a 5th grader wrote it, to be honest.
He tied him up.
And at the scene.
You mean the 25 minutes it went on for?
At least at the beginning when she started.
Yeah. And they almost got us a 3rd song, which if they gave us a 3rd song before the interruption from Lee, I would have probably given it 5 stars.
What song did you want?
I wanted, like, Can't Feel My Face, because we have a running joke about that song here, where if it comes on, it'll be like, oh my god, do you know that song's actually about cocaine? So if they had Jenna Ortega's character say that in the movie, and mansplain to poor Abel, that would have just been some icing on a rather shitty cake.
Like if somebody asked you, I did get asked today actually by someone what the plot of this movie is. Could you even try to explain it? I'm sure I could if I thought about it.
I'll give it a shot.
Okay, go ahead.
It's about The Weeknd, who's having some issues with his voice, and he's getting anxiety about performing and all this stuff. And then meanwhile, Jenna Ortega burns a house down. And they intersect at his concert because that's where she was going. It's a Halloween concert, right? They go and have a night together where they're hanging out on like the boardwalk and going on rides and shit. She like kidnaps him basically. I don't know what happens in this part where he's like in like an alternate reality.
The dream sequence?
The dream sequence where he's like the only one in the hotel, and then there's like that scary lady who screams and just
that
like,
I don't get at all. I've tried to think about what that could even mean. I don't know.
Well, he goes out into the street and it's like it's Vanilla Sky when Tom Cruise is running through Times Square and there's no one around. He's he's on the street in Los Angeles and there's no one there. And then he just
Yeah.
comes back in.
It's funny you mentioned that because I thought Inception immediately.
But then, she ties him up, explains how his songs are all about like loneliness and whatever. And then she kills his manager.
Yeah, rip to Lee.
Do you guys think that was justice for Sabrina?
I think in a roundabout way,
Yeah.
yes. If they didn't go
Yeah.
into this movie with that intention, that's how it ended, though.
Well, this was filmed in 2023, so
Oh,
Maybe
so
she
they...
caught wind of it then.
She goes, wait, if they're killing him off, I should reassess this.
Jenna Ortega and Barry Keoghan both had other options of projects to work on during this time, and they both said, no, we really want to do this one.
Do we know what projects, by any chance?
I don't.
Find out that Jenna Ortega passed up like a Marvel role for this.
Well, I would actually be okay with that one.
You don't want her in Marvel?
Here's the thing. I would have to know what role. If it was a not very minor role, but minor for her, and she was just going to do a one-offer, but instead she did this, and then maybe down the line she gets a bigger character in Marvel, I would rather...
Rogue.
Just yeah, then no. Then no. Then that was not a good choice. Think about Barry. He didn't have anything like that to lose. He was already in the MCU, and he's probably never coming back. The Eternals are just going to be written off into the sunset.
Remember when Harry Styles was in that? Crazy.
That's Thanos' brother.
Yes. What about the end of the movie, post-killing Barry?
She poured the gasoline on him. He just starts singing.
Yep.
For
She asked,
at least
the whole
3
thing,
minutes.
Yeah, the whole thing was like she kept asking him to be honest, and he wouldn't do it. This is sort of the culmination of that, which is super cheesy. I wish I would have counted how many times they did that stupid spinny shot.
Yeah.
I wish I had counted. It's got to be at least like 5 to 7 times throughout the whole movie. Super disorienting. If that was one of the Screen X movies, I think I might have thrown up.
I was thinking about that the whole time. I was like, if this was in Screen X, I would be dead right now. Like, this is terrible.
Yeah, that coupled with the audio of the movie just being so loud and obnoxious. When they were just doing the loud ass, trying to make it a horror movie, sounds of just shrieks and all that stuff, it was like, it would have been disorienting if you added that with the Screen X experience.
It was an audible and visual assault.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
almost the entire time.
You couldn't escape anything.
In my notes, I just said sound design and editing, OMG.
Almost, I think, ever since we started this, every single movie we've reviewed on here, we have had something to talk about as far as crowd interactions and stuff. And obviously this one was nothing different. This movie was rated R. We sit down in our seats. We're there, 20 minutes before the movie. And then in walks this lovely family of 5 and 3
kids under 5.
And 3 kids under the age of 5, one in a freaking carrier.
And a baby.
And a baby.
I would say, honestly, those kids were pretty well behaved.
They were.
That's the craziest part about it is I didn't even mind them being there. I was just concerned that, maybe that's not the best experience for your children at that age. They should probably be watching, Bluey or something, not The Weeknd doing vocal exercises and calling his ex-girlfriend a bitch while he's doing a bump from Barry Keoghan, and Jenna Ortega is tying him up in his hotel room and dousing gasoline on him.
During that specific portion of the movie when we kept calling her and leaving her like that really long voicemail.
Yeah.
I saw you next to me, Lindsay, go like this because like I assume you were reacting to his terrible acting.
Yes. It was great. I loved it.
If we're giving shout outs too, you got to give one to the doctor who gave him the diagnosis of his, stress related whatever vocal problem it was. He had maybe 2 lines and it was some of the worst delivery you'll ever hear.
The last note I had was that it was laughably bad at some points, which I think is where I was getting my entertainment from.
What is even the point of this? Why did this exist?
A promotion for the album / he wanted to make a movie. This was just a really long-winded music video. That's
it for sure.
That's all it was.
If you look in the credits too, the mom and the girlfriend who left the voicemail in the beginning to the movie are the same actor.
Who is, I think that's Elvis Presley's granddaughter. I only know that because she co-wrote a book that we sell at work.
So how long has this new album been out for? Because I feel like I heard about this coming out like 3 months ago.
January 31st.
Oh, so it was like 3
No, it
months
was
ago.
that long ago.
Yep, I got it right here.
If anything, why didn't he release it now? If he
Yeah.
really wanted to use this as a
Maybe he wanted
promotional
people
tool.
to be like familiar with the music before going to see the movie, but I don't know why that would that wouldn't have added anything to it.
No.
Actually, if you play the whole album backwards, it's just this. It's just the movie.
Yeah, it's like Pink Floyd with Wizard of Oz.
You know the part when the two of them are having their night out and they go like, it is a montage, I guess, they go
Yeah.
back and forth between whatever it is they're doing. But I thought that was like the worst possible version of the same exact sequence from Menorah. It was like identical in what they were trying to do.
Yeah,
Also,
right
the
up-
masks. Have we figured out what those are yet?
Like Lindsay said, it was not apparently, it was Halloween. I didn't even think that.
was them dressing up.
Yeah, I didn't even think that far ahead because I'm like, surely if they're gonna do something, it would be an actual costume, not the absolute minimum of an effort to like disguise yourself. Because there's no way in hell that clear mask would have stopped someone from going, "Holy shit, is that the Weeknd?"
If anything, it draws more attention to you.
Because here's the thing: if we're talking about this movie happening and the way it played out, he left his show early to disappear, and now he's on the boardwalk with this random chick. If that's the case, people are gonna know that. Oh, hey, my friend was just at the Weeknd concert. He left early. Doesn't this guy look just like the fucking Weeknd?
Except we know they wouldn't be calling him the Weeknd. They'd be calling him by his first name like they do.
Yeah, it's Abel, Jacob.
Yeah,
He is Abel.
Because you know how he's just on a first name basis with his fans.
The real fans.
This is a thing for me, if you couldn't tell. I don't understand it.
Yeah, Jacob was going off before, during, I'm sure, to himself, and then after, with everyone addressing the Weeknd as Abel.
Let me ask you this, okay? You meet him in real life, or you run into him,
Mhm.
like you're just walking down the street and you just bump into him by mistake. It's like a Disney Channel celebrity cameo. But if you talk to him, you're not gonna call him that. You're not gonna call him by his first name.
Yeah, I'm gonna go, hey Abel, testify.
Hello, Mr. No, hello, Mr. Weeknd.
I probably wouldn't talk to him at all because I am terrible with like recognizing famous people in the wild because I just assume it's someone who looks like them. Like when Steven and I were at Once Upon a Mattress and Lin-Manuel Miranda walked by, I turned to Steven and I said, doesn't that guy look like Lin-Manuel Miranda? And it wasn't until like other women started screaming at him that I was like, oh, that is him.
See, if I was here and I saw someone who looked like him, I would say that. But you were in New York. I wouldn't have said, like, I'm not a person who approaches people anyway. So
no,
I probably wouldn't have said, unless I bump into them. I'm not going to say anything. Be a very, very self-indulgent. You know how you always hear about studio executives ruining movies? I feel like nobody told this man no. He just said, he just came up with ideas and they just went with them. This director, what's his name again?
Trey Edward Schultz.
Who we had established has only directed one other thing, right?
Yes.
I think he's actually done 2 other movies. He did It Comes at Night and Waves, which I haven't seen either of those.
I mean, this is speculation, obviously, but it wouldn't surprise me if they cast somebody who's kind of inexperienced like that, just so they wouldn't step on the Weeknd's toes. Because there's no way an executive is looking at this and saying, yeah, you can just keep it like that. This is 100%, I think you said it, Steve, when we finished it. That was a tax write-off the movie.
Yeah, and I think he probably himself put up some of his money to get this made as part of the album. Because that's really, it's just, in conjunction with the album. They were never, this wasn't being made to be the next, like, Parasite or something, It's what it was. It was mostly probably for fans of his. And then anyone outside of that, like you or me, was people that were just interested because we saw the trailer. So, like, they did advertising for it and it paid off.
To be fair, I did say the trailer looked terrible when we saw it.
Oh, yeah, no, it did. And we're following it going.
I never saw a trailer or anything.
Yeah, she never saw one.
It was played before we saw Warfare.
Which seems like a weird movie to show it before.
You don't think military buffs want to see this?
Yeah, I just tried to stay away from anything that would give me any hint about what this movie was about because I wanted to be fully surprised. So I didn't even know, I still don't really, but I didn't even know what kind of genre it was.
I still don't know what genre it is.
Yeah, I'm like, I couldn't tell you.
It's touted as a psychological thriller.
I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
Because there is an interpretation of this movie where you're like, oh, this didn't actually happen, and he just came to all these revelations by himself and is like, manifested this sort of hallucination or whatever you want to call it to come to terms with that, like the whole, his loneliness or whatever. So there's that. I don't care about the movie enough to even dissect that or go further with it.
I just was kind of, impressed with what did work for me with this movie, but so much of it didn't that I genuinely thought about leaving the theater.
Which we did see a few people do.
Yeah, someone. This is the other part too with the whole crowd with this movie. There was someone who left during the movie, and when they did, it looked like they could have been carrying an infant on their shoulder. But Lindsay said she saw it too, and she thought it was like maybe a pillow of some sort.
Yeah.
Or like a
See, the more
wash.
Yeah, see, the more I think about it, if that was a baby, it was really floppy. I don't think it was a baby now.
They weren't supporting the head when she walked in with it.
Yeah.
She was holding it like this. She wasn't like.
I was gonna say the same thing.
No, the baby
is no longer intact.
The baby is
That's the
actually
baby.
dead, and they left early because of that.
And they didn't come in with like a stroller or anything, which for a baby that young I thought was weird.
They're just raw dogging childcare.
Especially through the sounds and the sound design of that movie, that baby definitely would not have stayed silent.
Although that other baby did, so.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
That baby loves Abel.
Yeah.
I was hoping, this is kind of sick, but I was hoping that she did light him on fire at the end just because I wanted to have like 3 children be able to see that.
I would have been watching the children and not the screen.
We did have people talking throughout this movie as well.
The first 2/3 of the movie, they were fine. And then just the third act, they just kept going and going.
Mm-hmm.
That does it for Hurry Up Tomorrow. Real bad time. I can't recommend you watch it.
Your money, your choice, but don't pay for it. Just wait for it to go on streaming or something. Don't get me wrong. I still enjoyed it for like what it was, but I wouldn't have wanted to like pay for that.
But if movies were still like $7 or $8, I would say just see it, just to see. You need to know how bad this is. But now that movies are just ridiculously expensive, you don't need to do that.
The hope I had for this too going into it, to kind of lead into our next movie, is that this was going to be so bad that no matter what we saw after it was going to feel like we were watching The Shining or The Godfather Part 2 or something, like just a perfect movie. But we ended up seeing Final Destination Bloodlines was the next film.
Ratings.
Here. And with this movie, I guess ultimately you could say it was a disappointment, which doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. I thought it was a little bit of a different way of doing things, but ultimately it was still premonition involved. People die in the order they were supposed to, and in this way, they did it with a family, and there was some cool dynamics with how they told the story. The misses for me, and I think all of us, were the CGI was very shoddy in some spots, and that was disappointing because with this franchise, we've had a lot of good practical effects. Going back to the originals, which is early 2000s, we're talking.
Yeah, and I watched, before we went to see this movie, a video with producer Craig Perry, I think is his name, who's like produced all these movies, and he went through and did like behind the scenes of like every single death in the Final Destination franchise and talked about how they were done. And so it was really cool seeing all the practical effects and all of that. And then we go and see this movie and it's like all CGI that looks terrible. And it's just like you've built this franchise on these really cool practical effects, and now you're just gonna go and phone it in for this. Like, that seems, because people have been waiting for, when did the last one come out? 2011.
2011. Yep.
People have been waiting 14 years for another movie like this. And
Wasn't there a weird one called like The Final Destination?
that was
that's
4.
4.
Oh, that was 4. Okay, I thought it was like one of
4.
those a random spin-off. Okay, I didn't know that was 4.
They do a fun thing with their numbering. It's Final Destination 2, Final Destination 3, The Final Destination, and then Final Destination 5.
Yeah. So that's like their Rocky Balboa.
Yep.
I think premise, you kind of have to use CGI at certain points because they wanted to go really big with the whole restaurant and in the elevator and whatever 400 whatever feet in the air they were supposed to be. I do agree that the practical effects are way more effective. To give a background here, you guys have seen all of these movies. I've only seen one, and it was 5. Just because I turned it on FX like 10 years ago or something. I don't remember like anything about that movie, but I do remember the acupuncture related death where that happens, and then the dude gets like the Buddha statue smashes his head in.
Yeah.
I wouldn't remember that if it was CGI.
Yeah.
I only remembered it because it was all practical.
What I will say though about the premonition in this one, the woman getting lit on fire, that was real. And
Oh.
she was 71 years old. Yvette Ferguson is her name. And she came out of retirement to do the stunt.
Wow.
And they think she's possibly the oldest person to be set on fire, like on camera for a stunt like that.
I think for me, just as someone who doesn't have a whole lot of experience with the series, I know obviously I have a background information about it. I know about the premonitions and the kill order and blah blah blah. But unfortunately, I feel like I almost just don't need to watch the other ones now because I get what this is.
The other
I'm
one's
sure that
better.
I'm like 100% sure the other ones are better, but that whole like thing where it didn't just kill the people who were in the restaurant, those people weren't supposed to exist, so it killed all their families, and that's sort of like the whole premise of this, which I thought was kind of cool. But if you get down to it, that's like a lot of people dying really weird deaths.
That's the way it works. It's just this,
That's design.
as we get the nice send off from Tony Todd.
We're supposed to believe he's at least 15 years younger than Iris was.
Crazy.
And she looked younger than him.
He was an infant practically. He was like 5 or 6. She was in her, 18, 17,
she had
18?
to have been at least 18.
Yeah, so he's maybe, 14, 15 years younger than her. And she's been living in a fucking cabin for 30 years by herself.
I was trying to think about this in the movie, but it's kind of hard to do the math when you're trying to watch the movie at the same time. Why is he still alive?
He would have died after her. So she has to die before he can die.
But that means now he should be up for fair. It should be fair game for him now, right?
No, I think he's dead now. Because
you think like it happened right after that?
It's off screen. He's dead now. They obviously didn't film a scene for it or put like that in the movie. He kind of walked off into the sunset. I think they made it kind of clear that the second she died, Iris, he was next to die because now her part of the death tree is all taken care of. He's the one to die next. And then somewhere out there is also that little kid who was trying to throw the penny off of the tower. He would be he would be next in line after him. So that guy's sitting around somewhere not knowing that he's been avoiding death for 50 years because this lady saw it coming. I saw that Tony Todd's ending to his, you want to call it monologue or whatever, was completely ad-libbed by him. And the director kind of just let him go and filmed it, and that's the take they used in the film. I thought that was a cool way to, if you want to put this series together as a whole now, this being the 6th movie, and if this movie does well enough, which I think we're at, $50 million. Box office is already 105 as of right now. So it just opened. Bet that there's going to be not so much a sequel to this, but a new Final Destination movie coming after this, which
I hope so.
I hope so for the fact that they need to be around, just kind of like a fun staple every couple of years. And also, not to say that we are going to have some influence over their decisions if they make a sequel, but I think they have a good chance to improve upon it if they go back towards practical effects. There's no real evidence. I don't really have, this is just like a thought of mine through seeing how the movie industry has kind of gone since COVID. I think the whole CGI issue, if you want to call it that, was kind of worsened by COVID, and we're finally starting to get out of that. You're having movies come out that are, again, that lower budget, you're not expecting it to be anything, and then it makes $1 billion. And you're like, oh, okay, this is still doable if we do the right thing. And with this one, it's like, okay, you guys are going to get probably a bigger budget this time around because of what you made with this one. Use that for practical stuff, and you'll hit it out of the park even more. Like, you could just keep going.
This is what should have been happening to begin with. I think when COVID happened and movie theaters really took a hit, studios' instinct was to just double down on the IP they knew was definitely going to make money, but also cost a ton of money to make. And I think what probably should have been happening was just make movies like this that don't cost a ton of money to make, and the return you get if it's a hit is like 100 times what you would for a normal big budget movie. I think we're going to start to get a little bit of that. It's already been happening with horror. I think horror's really come back in this like post-COVID era. I think it's only a matter of time before that starts happening with other genres.
Yeah, like this year there's a lot of good horror. Like even in the summer, we have Megan 2.0 coming out this summer. That trailer we saw before this, that looked fun.
Weapons
coming, yep, from our boy Zach Krieger. I know you watch these. We love you. Keep up the great work.
And then Him is September, right?
Yes.
What is that?
It's like a sports horror movie. I think Jordan Peele produced it.
It's got one of the Wayans brothers in it.
Yeah, so we got some good horror stuff coming up.
So again, I had some things that I pulled from Wikipedia that I was reading last night. Originally, this was supposed to be set in the world of first responders, so it was supposed to be about like EMTs and firefighters, I guess. No offense to this movie, sounds way more interesting to me than what we got, because I think that would have been cool. And it was supposed to be released on HBO Max, so it wasn't even supposed to have a
I'm glad that didn't happen.
it sounded like they had the idea for the movie and then someone else came in and like rewrote it or something, and that's why we didn't get the EMT movie that it sounded like it was supposed to be.
So I wonder what, like, do you think that would have just been them responding to these ridiculous happenings and being like, what is going on here, and them looking into it? Because that does sound fun.
Yeah, that would be fun. Or I thought maybe the premonition was like, they were going into like a house fire or something, and like that would have been a whole thing, and the building collapses, and
Could you even do something like if we're just like spitballing ideas for that, could just be that somebody and there is no premonition, but now they're in death's way, and that's how they sort of
yeah,
that would have been fun.
yeah, I think so too. And then that's not the movie we got.
No.
Nope.
I don't really have any complaints about like the acting or anything though, because I know sometimes these movies are a little cheesy, but I felt like the acting in this overall was pretty all right. Like there wasn't anyone who wildly offended me with their performance, so
No, I thought Stephanie was really good.
I
yeah.
agree.
And for someone who Caitlin Santajuana, I've never seen her in anything. She was in The
Yeah.
Flash, it looks like, but I never watched that.
Oh, wait a minute. Who was she?
Hold on, I got you here. Lydia Sanchez for 2 episodes.
Yeah, I don't remember who that was.
2022.
I watched that show for 7 seasons, if you can believe that, and it was good for one of them.
And Lindsay, she was also the understudy for Zoe in Dear Evan Hansen.
Wow.
So
I wonder if she went on at all.
yeah, it says Canadian production and Broadway production.
Nice.
She's only been in 3 movies before this, 2 of them being television films, and
Once again showing that theater actors are better than everyone else.
they're really good at translating to the screen, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where most really great actors start, so makes sense.
The only other thing I wanted to do, and sorry, Jacob, you can't really participate, is I wanted to rank our Final Destination movies, like our opinions.
I did have a question though about one thing that I assume is the answer. So I'm assuming that when in the Tony Todd scene, when he's referencing the person who cheated death, that's somebody from a previous movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was
I figured
it was Final Destination 2.
That's what I figured. How many of these actually end with like a win for someone where they actually survive?
None of them. They all end like
None of
this.
them?
You're literally only watching it for the gore.
No.
No, and Jacob,
No, that's my least favorite horror.
I will say I was kind of excited about the aspect of it because I knew you had no idea. They were all like that, and as this was playing out the whole time I'm watching it, going to myself, if they end this like they normally do, Jacob's gonna be like, what the fuck?
That's the reason I didn't like Smile. The first one, at least.
Uh-huh.
The second one ended in a similar way, but I liked it much better than the first one. I don't like horror where you get to the end of it and you realize that nobody ever stood a chance ever, that you were going to lose no matter what. You got to give me some hope. And then if you lose by your own, faults or admissions, then whatever. I can deal with that.
So yeah, Steven, you want to rank yours? Tell me what your ranking is, including 6 now, since we saw it. Part of what influences my ranking is like how good the premonition disaster is.
I think I'm gonna go 2, 1, 5. This one, Final Destination Bloodlines. 3, 4.
Wow, interesting.
Okay, Lindsay, what's your ratings then?
My ranking is probably going to be 2, 5, 1, 3, 6, 4. I think it's just like, honestly, the older ones are just so like nostalgic. You know when you first start seeing scary movies and it's like the best thing ever? That's what these movies were for me.
The best horror to me is usually about regular people in horrible situations, and
that's what I love about these movies.
Shout out to the dad though, who after like 4 people had died was like, guys, calm down, it's not really happening.
Yeah, I did like the like bastard son storyline. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
Because it was like, well, why didn't he die first? It's like, oh, actually, that's not your father. just like that. That was a funny touch because these movies always do have like a sense of humor. So I'm glad that like that was in this too.
I thought the way the actress that was playing their mother like played the scene was so funny because she's just like, she just lost her husband, now her daughter just died, and she has to approach her son about the fact that he's not related to his father. What we thought was going to be his death scene was like really good, and I had to give one for the movie that actually did end up happening. Death scene the best. The magnetic pull from the MRI pulling all his jewelry out was just like, ugh. I felt the, what is it, a Prince Albert?
Yeah.
Yeah, that Prince Albert that got pulled out. Woo!
As someone with piercings, it was just like, because I have had to take all them out for an MRI before.
I really liked the ending death of the rest of the family from the train derailment, because the one thing I liked too with all of the...
You didn't know this was 1860?
Yeah.
Where that could totally happen.
And then apparently like the train cars are just gaining even more momentum as they're crashing, and then they even had a log trailer on the train. It was like all of them combined.
It was all right. It was all right. Like I probably wouldn't watch it again, but didn't comparatively, and even if we didn't see, the worst movie of all time before it, I'd say it was pretty all right.
Jacob, if you're gonna watch one Final Destination movie, I would say watch 2.
All right, well, I think that does it for our discussion about our double feature. We will see you next week to talk about Mission Impossible.
Yeah, next week we talk about Mission Impossible. My hero, Tom Cruise, saving cinema like he always does. I hope we have a nice end credit scene where Glenn Powell takes the helm.
No,
and we get one of these movies like every 2 years, just for the rest of our lives.
The next one will be about another world earth-shattering crisis where they try to ready up and get down to business, and then they find out that they've been defunded by Doge.
The IMF is clearing out their desks.
Yeah, it's like Ghost Protocol, except they did it.
It's Mission Impossible Doge Protocol. Well, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.